marathon part of an Ironman distance triathlon can create a lot of fears and anxieties, especially for first-timers as well as for experienced athletes like myself. I actually did my first marathon during my first Ironman back in 1997, and my longest run leading up to it was only 16 miles. So I had no idea how my body was going to respond once I got past that 16-mile mark. And I just didn't have the experience or the training or the knowledge or the coaching or anything back in the 90s to help educate myself. I learned by doing. So today I wanted to talk about how you can have a rewarding marathon experience like I did in 2008 actually, that it was kind of effortless and really lack of struggle. And I know struggle is all relative and effortless is all relative, but we're talking in regarding the Ironman. So first, the Ironman marathon, how you feel mentally and physically all comes down to the bike. How you pace yourself on the bike, as well as how much you eat and drinking on the bike. So you want to make sure you have a plan. Are you going to gauge your intensity by a power meter, a heart rate monitor? Pacing I don't recommend on the bike due to various weather conditions and terrain is going to fluctuate your pace a lot. Or are you just going to go by what I prefer, just the general rate of perceived effort, and ride the bike portion of the Ironman at a rate of perceived effort in that 4 to 5 range on a scale of 1 to 10, or you know, like I said, you may have a power meter or heart rate monitor and you're going to do it that way. Make sure you know ahead of time and make sure you execute your plan. You know, I've had years where I was training with power and then race day my power meter didn't work and I didn't care, and I knew I was hammering the bike more than I should have, and the reason I was doing that is because I had doubts about how well I would run because of my injury, and then it ended up I'd get off the bike, I had dead legs, and I had a horrific experience in the marathons. But I've also had good plans where I paced it well. I learned a lot about my nutrition, and I dialed in my nutrition, so I was having 50 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and I was having at least 40 ounces of liquid nutrition per hour, and I've come off the bike with the freshest legs and feeling very energetic because my nutrition and my pacing was so dialed in. But things change as you age, and you know, I'm a master's athlete, I'm 48 years old, I have 29 years of triathlon experience. My body is feeling the effects of all my training and racing. My nutrition needs are different, and so I'm constantly fine-tuning and dialing in that nutrition, as well as, you know, getting more experience training with the power meter. So make sure if you want to have a successful marathon, you dial in what's going to happen on the bike. Make sure when it comes to the bike training, you're training on a race specific terrain. So if your Ironman includes a hilly bike, something like Canada or Coeur d'Alene, or you know, can't think of anything off the top of my head, make sure if possible you're able to train on that type of terrain, the elevation that the race day is going to have for you on the bike, because riding on flats and then racing on a hilly course, your legs are going to come off the bike feeling really different. Riding aero for 112 miles versus alternating between riding upright as you climb a hill, riding aero on the downhill and flats, your different muscles are going to be used, and your legs are going to feel different coming off the bike. So again, I want to stress how important the bike training, pacing, and nutrition is when it comes to having a more enjoyable and rewarding Ironman experience. A few other things when it comes down to the run, making sure you do have a pacing plan, or not a pacing plan, but an intensity plan. Are you going to follow rate of perceived effort? Are you going to follow a certain pace or heart rate, or maybe you run with power? Make sure you have that plan in place. Make sure you know what your nutrition is going to be. Are you going to rely on the nutrition on the race course? Are you going to carry your own nutrition? Make sure you look ahead at the weather. Make sure you're dressed for comfort. Are you going to wear socks, or are you going to go sockless? Whatever you decide to do, make sure you do that in training. What I like to do when I break up the Ironman marathon, because I know the 8 stations are a mile apart, I like to never walk between 8 stations. So I'm always running 8 station to 8 station, and if my plan for that race execution that day involves walking the 8 stations, well then I'm going to make sure I walk every 8 station from the time I enter the 8 station, from the time I exit the 8 station, because I have the experience and I plan that out ahead of time. Also, know what could go wrong and what could be a disadvantage for you during that Ironman marathon. If your nutrition was off on the bike, or your nutrition is off at the beginning of the marathon, that could cause some bloating, some nausea. Usually if you're feeling bloated or have nausea, it's because you're dehydrated. Make sure you take the time at the next aid station to drink some fluid with some electrolytes, or drink water and take some electrolytes. Something that you know that has worked for you in the past to overcome that nausea and that bloating, because the last thing you want to do is eat, and that's probably what's going to help you. Another thing that I've never had to do, but I think it's great advice, is if you are feeling nausea and you feel like you want to barf, throw up, puke, however you want to term it, do it. You know, I've seen athletes kind of force themselves to puke up what's causing discomfort in their gut, and then all of a sudden they like take off. So all they needed was to empty their digestive tract, because they just overconsumed. Maybe the days leading up to it they overconsumed nutrition, and they just had to get it out of their gut, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're going from a 15-mile pace to a 10-minute mile pace or faster on the marathon. So just knowing some tricks and what other athletes that you know and trust, professionals, amateurs, talk to them, see what works, see what has worked from them, and help them educate you as you approach your Ironman marathon. So something else that can help you with the Ironman marathon, if you're feeling like you're shuffling, if you're not lifting your legs, take a mental note. Make sure you're thinking about your form, thinking about your posture, thinking about quick cadence, thinking about arm swing, because when you start moving your arms faster, that somehow is going to help move your legs faster. So you're going to be able to pick up your cadence, pick up your legs, make sure your posture is good, you're not leaning over, and you know, mentally it all comes down to mental attitude, and being positive will go a long way to reach success and the rewarding experience during an Ironman marathon. I'd love to hear any issues you've had, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. Comment below, or join the chatter in our T2 Endurance group. I love when athletes are sharing their stories to help others, and then it also helps me, even though I've been doing this sport and I've been coaching for a very long time, there's always something new for me to learn that I can pass on to other athletes. And I hope you make it a great day.